are delighted to have you with us. We had 60 people register for this afternoon's workshop, and we're very excited to present this to you. The last time that we had a meeting with this group, we talked about the relevance and the current state of the state horse councils, and we came away thinking we need to arm you guys with some more stuff to help you really be strong and formation and thrive and be sustainable. So we've built a resource, and I'm just going to be honest, my staff and I had no idea when we started this it was going to blossom into this big document. But we are at, I think, almost 80 pages. We've got 18 chapters that we want to share with you today. The whole resource is intended for one purpose, which is to support the people who dedicate time, energy, and their heart to strengthening the horse industry in their states. And whether you are just stepping into this role or you've been in it a while, we think we've got something in here for everyone. And we really want to meet you where you are and offer you some tools and some techniques. Maybe some of this is things you've heard. Maybe some of it's new stuff. So we'll go from there. And it is very much a work in progress. I kidded with my staff when we were talking earlier today about this, that this has really grown into a living, breathing, fluid document. So it's not refined. It's not ready quite yet, but it's getting close. At the end of the session, if you guys have ideas about things we should add, we would welcome you to email us and let us know so we can think about what that looks like. So we're really excited about all this. But before we jump in, I want to turn it over to Justine Staten, who is the executive director from the Kansas State Horse Council. She is the chair of the Coalition of State Horse Councils. So I'm going to let her say a few words before we launch.
Yeah, this is great to see such a good turnout today in the middle of a Friday when I'm sure folks are ready to wrap up their week. So thanks for being with us today. And I think you're going to find, like me, I'm so super excited for this resource. And I can't thank American Horse Council team enough for just sharing your time and talents and wisdom, because I've had a sneak peek at this and I'm here to tell you there is some really incredible resource information in here, tools and checklists and everything else. You're just gonna, I stayed up till 1 a.m. just reading the draft one evening. I couldn't put it down. So
you're brave.
you all.
You're brave. Okay, so before we jump in, let me do some introductions. So the AHC staff consists of a mighty team. So I want you to meet, if you have not met, Amanda Cadillac. She's our government affairs lead. Emily Stearns is our health, welfare, and regulatory lead. Ashley Harkins, we call her our operations manager, but she has a lot of hats. She does all things back end for AHC and the United Horse Coalition. She also wears that United Horse Coalition hat, so she's the person that you turn to with questions about that. Kelsey Buckley's out there somewhere. Up there she is, up there in the corner. I see her now. Kelsey is what I call our resident researcher. She handles the Equine Welfare Data Collective, and now she's spearheading our NADPREP grant. So we'll talk some more about that in a little while. And then Kelly Chapier, I don't know if Kelly is with us. Kelly is our corporate sponsorship person. She's absolutely fabulous. We love her. So with that, I'm going to turn the control to Emily because she's going to drive the video part of this. But what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through this new toolkit, and the author of each chapter is going to say just a few words about the chapter and give you a taste. I promise you we will not go into great detail because there's a lot in each chapter, and Justine's nodding her head. There's a lot of content here. So my point is going to be to give you a flavor for what is in each chapter so you know what our thinking was. And I'm, again, totally transparent. We just spitballed what we thought you guys might need, what might be useful to you. But if we've missed something or a component, let us know. We'll circle back around to that. So, Emily, I'm going to let you drive and we're going to talk. We have some introductory things, so you can scroll through that, Emily, a little bit. So you see, we're telling you a little bit about how this came to be. Got a message from me, got a message from Justine, and then we sort of lay out who we are, what we do, and then the next stage is to get into the meat of this. One more time, Emily. There you go. So chapter 1. So Amanda, I'm going to kick it off with you. Talk about chapter 1 and the contents about why and how to form a state horse council.
So hi, everyone. Chapter 1, why and how to form a state horse council. A state horse council is one of the most impactful steps we can take to strengthen our equine community. Across every state, our industry is incredibly diverse. So we have breed associations, recreational riders, competitive disciplines, veterinarians, trainers, and organizations of all sizes, each with their own priorities, but all sharing the same underlying needs. When those voices operate independently, opportunities can be missed, communication can break down, and it becomes harder to respond to the emerging challenges that we see today. So the State Horse Council is there to change that dynamic. It provides a central, unified structure that allows the community to speak with one voice. It serves as a hub of collaboration, especially during health and welfare issues, when timely, accurate information is critical. Councils can gather, verify, and share updates from state agencies, veterinary authorities, and trusted partners so the community can act confidently rather than reactively. Another major role of a council is advocacy. Without coordinated representation, horse owners risk being invisible in legislative and regulatory decision-making. A state horse council can monitor bills, policies, and administrative actions and helps educate stakeholders on how to effectively engage with state and local government.
Okay, thanks, Amanda.
Sure.
Appreciate that. So I want to pause here and say two things. We had 60 people sign up for this. We are recording it. And we don't know how many of you are existing councils and how many are not. So we've tried to gear this so it meets you where you are. Some of it is for people who have been at this a while. Some of it is for people who are volunteers and they struggle maybe a little bit to figure out how to make all this happen. And some of it's for people who are brand new and they want to form their first state horse council. So we're trying to do everything we can to set you up for success. That's our objective with this whole toolkit. So, Amanda, any closing remarks about why or how to form a state horse council?
So we also address if you have a state horse council who's either lapsed or it's kind of flagging. So we offer some suggestions on ways to revitalize those. But the key takeaway in this chapter is that the state horse council can serve as a way to unify the industry. And it ensures the long-term vitality of our community and our issues and what we care about.
So Amanda is our government affairs person, and she can tell you, and I'm doing this with my hands so you guys can see, we have both grassroots and what they call treetops. So we need grassroots because that very much influences congressional members. You are their constituents. But we also need treetops. So we need people who are in those roles that can be influential. Sometimes that's at the state level and the district offices for congressional members who are even in DC. So there's all kinds of ways to make that network come together. So thanks, Amanda. We appreciate that. So Emily, on to chapter 2. So chapter 2, this is the question we hear from almost every state horse council is about funding strategies because everybody's struggling financially to figure this out. So this chapter was authored by Dr. Ann Swinker. Most of you know Ann because she's been an active member of the Coalition of State Horse Councils for a long time. She's from Pennsylvania State University. She started this chapter many years ago, and then I sort of added on to it to kind of help make it a little more current. But this whole chapter is all about different ways you should explore funding. It could come from individual donors, it can come from corporate or organizational sponsors, it could come from grant funding, endowments, or foundations. Lots of different ways to do this, and we are offering you in this chapter some avenues to figure out how to fund those things. So there is a number of different things in this chapter that tell you where to go and look, how to find these things. I'm not trying to gloss over this, but just to tell you that this is a complicated subject to find funding. And it drives me a little bit crazy, Justine, when somebody says, oh, well, you should just go find a sponsor. Not so easy. And everybody knows that. So the challenge here is to figure out how to write successful grant proposals. At our conference in June, we have a person who is going to speak hopefully at the Coalition of State Horse Councils about grant writing strategies. So we would suggest to you, feel free to put those dates on your calendar, June 21st through 24th in Washington, and come join us and network with everybody, hear more from the experts, because we are not grant writing experts at the American Horse Council. We wish we were. But we would love for you to come, engage with one another, and hear about all the ways that you can create that kind of environment, that kind of partnership. I will add to this, any of you that are out there that do this a lot, I would say it's not just writing the grant and getting the money. It's about building the relationship and about reporting back what you accomplished from the money that they gave you, so they see clear return on investment and evidence of how good of stewards you were of their money. And that also encourages them to give more. And I will also tell you from my personal experience in this nonprofit world, money begets money. So if you get a grant from someone, that's a good testimonial to get somebody else to give you a grant. Justine, you want to add to that story?
Sorry, I struggled to unmute there. I don't know what else there is to say other than that is true, that testimonial from or it's just sort of building that resume that you are a trustworthy steward of the monies that are given, and that you can really do a lot of investing with that and let it grow. So
awesome. Okay, Emily, on to chapter 3. We'll try to stay on track here. So chapter 3 is about governance foundations for state horse councils. Now, this is a little bit of a me thing, but one of the challenges I have found in all my work in nonprofits is if you don't have a solid foundation for governance, it's going to be a really tough road. This is all about suggesting that you should be very clear about your mission and your vision. What is it you're trying to accomplish? It's about understanding the diversity and the importance of your board, implementing a very effective financial oversights and transparency, because that's key, guys. I can't tell you how many organizations I know of who've had challenges because there was not enough transparency or financial oversight. So that's really important. It's talking about compliance with legal and ethical standards and evaluating how you're doing as an organization. So lots of content in here to get you thinking about what you need to do to make sure you're in a really good place as an organization, and you're not going to be rocked to the foundation if you lose maybe a founder, maybe someone who was an executive director for a while and then they retire. We want to set you up for the best possible scenario so that you've got everything in place and you know how you're going to navigate when you go through these transitions. So Emily, go to chapter 4. And you'll see my thumbprints on a lot of this, guys, because I do so much nonprofit work. So chapter 4 is about why strategic planning is important. Because I'm a firm believer that if you don't have a plan, you don't have a vision of where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish. So this is all about setting that clear direction, figuring out the process that you need to do to make sure you're making important decisions. When people come to you with ideas, take those in. That's great. But match those ideas against what your mission and vision is so you can honestly say, thank you very much. Great idea. Not in the plan for the next year. It gives you that solid idea of how to navigate and how to siphon through all these various things that are coming at you from all kinds of places. So we really think having a strong strategic plan is the best way to help you guys figure it out. Now, if you need help with a strategic plan, I know some people, and some of you have reached out to me. I've got colleagues who are happy to give you free consulting time to help you facilitate a strategic plan with your board to kind of help you work through all that. So just reach out to me if that's the case. I have no idea how many of you have a strategic plan, but I would honestly say it's one of the best tools that you're going to find to help you figure out what your priorities are, where you need to go, how to spend your time and your energy and your money. That's the key point right there. Justine, you want to add anything to that? Because I know you guys have just been through this.
We do. We do a strategic planning update every year. We kind of check in and see, have we met those goals? And if we need to revise those or rearrange and reprioritize. So not only do we do that as a board, but we also do that across the state with our equine sector session, sort of a reprioritizing. I think it's really good because then you can really evaluate what you have accomplished and decide where to go from there. So yeah, thank you.
So the one thing I'm going to add to this is, because I didn't want to dwell in it too much, part of the toolkit tells you what you need to do, step by step, how to do a strategic plan. Here's how you do the pre-work. Here's how you do the information gathering. Here's how you do the workshop. It's going to talk you through the whole thing. So if you've never done one, this is going to help you figure out exactly what the process is and what's the best way to go about it. So that's a little bit about chapter 4. So Emily, that takes me to chapter 5. So at our last webinar, Justine and I had a long conversation about the fact that we are seeing a lot of movement in leadership in the equine industry. Some people retiring, people moving around, lots of changes. And so chapter 5 is about why a succession plan is so important. Now, the whole idea behind a succession plan is so you're not caught flat-footed when a leader says, I'm going to retire or I'm accepting another job. It also is about not having disruption in the organization. Because when you lose a leader who's been there for a number of years, suddenly everybody's like floundering around like, okay, what do we do? How does this work forward? And you're losing that institutional knowledge. So a succession plan is all about planning ahead, being proactive, figuring out exactly what you need to get yourself ready, whether you have a leader who leaves unexpectedly or has a planned transition, like they are leaving in a couple of months for retirement or for the next job. I have chaired a search committee for a number of different nonprofits when they're looking for a new leader, and this is never easy, regardless of whatever the circumstances are, but having a solid succession plan really helps the board and the staff have comfort that there is a strategy documented that helps guide them, and they don't feel like they're lost and kind of floundering and figuring out what to do and how to get through all this. So this chapter, again, like the previous chapter, is all about why it's important, but it also contains a checklist that says, hey, generally speaking, when you need to develop a succession plan, here's what you need to do. So you can follow along with this. It may not be perfect for your organization, but it'll give you a really good start at what you need to follow to ensure you have a succession plan. Don't wait to develop a succession plan when someone is leaving. Start now, have a plan. Then when someone says, I'm leaving, you pull out the plan and you just follow along. You've got all the pieces put together, and that helps you kind of navigate through this without having that anxiety of, oh my gosh, what's happening here? So, chapter 5, all about succession planning. Okay, Emily, moving on to chapter 6. Back to Amanda.
This chapter talks about Advocacy 101, grassroots to treetops. A key part of this chapter is understanding the difference between advocacy and lobbying. So advocacy covers a wide range of activities from public education, coalition building, awareness campaigns, and mobilization, while lobbying is much more specific. It's when we work directly to influence legislation or regulatory decisions. Another important point that this chapter makes is that every sector has a lobbyist, whether it's business, nonprofit, labor groups, environmental organizations, and equine industry is no different. State horse councils can play a really unique role here by uniting these diverse voices and amplifying them so that policymakers hear a strong, coordinated message. Another highlight in this chapter is the reminder that anyone can lobby, but sometimes the issues that we face, whether they're highly technical or politically complex, they might require outside assistance. So we talk about when it makes sense to hire what we call hired guns. The chapter also talks about practical guidance on how to lobby successfully if you are going to participate in what we call fly-in days. We talk about respecting policymakers' time, following up after meetings, and working on building long-term relationships that are all essential pieces of the process, because you don't just want to show up in somebody's office when you have an ask. You want to be visible and present at all times.
Awesome.
So that's that.
Okay, so building on that, she's got a checklist in here that explains to you how to go about doing your ask and your advocacy work. And again, I want to reiterate 501c3s, 501c5s, 501c6, regardless of what your status is, you can do advocacy work. There are just different sets of rules about what you can do and what you can't do. So this chapter is all about helping you understand you're not what's the right word? You're not lost in the sea here. You can absolutely do some things. You just need to know what the rules are. So she's got a whole bunch of checklist stuff here to help you with that. Now, she's going to talk about that in chapter 7, which is called the lobbying rules for nonprofits. So Amanda.
Yeah, this is where we really talk about the caveats between the different classifications of nonprofits. So this chapter takes you through a walkthrough of what's essential for any state horse council or equine nonprofit that wants to engage effectively. One of the first key points is reiterating the difference between advocacy and lobbying. I did it again. I can't say the word advocacy today. I apologize. All lobbying is advocacy, but not all advocacy is lobbying, and that distinction really matters for 501c organizations. Your classification can determine how much lobbying you can do and what you can do. And it's not just a paperwork detail. It can really get you into trouble. And it can affect what your donors can receive as far as tax deductions for anything that they contribute to your organization. Then we also cover highlights like registration rules and reporting requirements and keeping accurate records. We also walk you through several real-world scenario examples that we put together that kind of when you look at something with a lot of letters and numbers, it's like a 501c3, 501c6, 501c7, it's hard to really tell what does that mean and what can I do. So we walk through a couple of scenarios that just say this is this type of organization and they're trying to accomplish this and this is what they're allowed to do. So I think it really breaks it down for people to understand what they can and can't do.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. Okay, on to chapter 8. There are 18 chapters right now, guys, so I'm kind of breezing through this. Chapter 8 is about recruiting and growing your council membership. This is a question we get all the time. I'm sure Justine and the coalition members are always struggling with this. So Emily and I partnered on this. Emily, I'm going to let you take the lead and then I'll jump in.
Sure. So I think the biggest thing about the growing membership recommendations is it really talks about how to actively promote growing your membership and not being kind of a passive driver in this and kind of hoping people find you and people come and join. So the big thing and what I really like is the sidebar at the end, and it's forgive us, we're still in the middle of getting all of our graphics kind of set up and stuff, but the sidebar at the end is your 60-second council pitch, and it really talks about, you know, going out in public, talking to random people, going to the library, talking to people, but making sure you have a pitch of what to tell people and that you're kind of actively putting that olive branch out there to even non-horse people. Julie and I talk about this a lot, that getting people to your state horse council and getting people to join the industry, there should not be a prerequisite to be a horse person before that. Anybody can come, and it's a great way to grow your membership if you start thinking outside the box.
Okay, which leads us to...
This meeting is being recorded.
So this leads us to chapter 9. One of the things that we've heard a lot is about the fact that, unfortunately, chapters, regardless of what organization you're involved with, whether it's Farm Bureau or National Grange or the American Horse Council, chapters are starting to see some declines. And one of the ways to improve that is to build on youth engagement. So Emily comes from a youth background, meaning she taught at the university level. She can tell you a lot about what these young people are looking for and why we want them to get involved, because they are our future leaders. So Emily.
Yeah, the big thing this talks about is that making sure youth, and it goes through the steps of how to form a youth council, if that's going to be beneficial to your state horse council, but making sure youth feel valued, that they don't just, you know, feel like kids who are there to have fun, that they are actively giving back to the state horse council. And then it also talks about how you can use your state horse council to build a pathway to leadership from the youth state horse council up to your own board even, and that building these pathways to leadership help keep the youth more engaged in the long term. If there's goals to achieve, if they really feel like they have a long-term lifelong investment in the health of your state horse council, they want to stay engaged. And if they move away, maybe they'll want to join whatever state they move to. It really gets into talking about how, you know, projects you give youth just because they're kids doesn't mean they can't be important projects that help uplift the state horse council. And, you know, it doesn't just have to kind of be going and picking up trash somewhere. That, you know, you can give them a pretty big responsibility and you'll be surprised at what you get back. So this chapter talks about that a lot. And then it also gives an example, youth council charter at the end that you could use to kind of guide your own state horse youth or youth state council chapter.
So I'll just add, we have seen in the association space in the last few years a resurgence of youth engagement. And it's coming from youth that want to have this voice. They want to be advocates. They want to fight for the industry that they're passionate about. Just this morning, there was an entire conversation on the local news in Washington, D.C. about local high school students who are getting out and marching about certain issues that they're passionate about. So we think we are in a prime place to sort of leverage that youth council and that youth engagement aspect of this. So really seriously read this chapter. We think this is a great one. Moving on, chapter 10. Chapter 10 is about how to build good leadership. And this kind of segues into my whole conversation about succession planning. So what we're trying to do here is to say, in order to have a strong state horse council, you have to have good leadership. And so this whole chapter is all about what it takes to be good leaders, how to ensure that you continue to cultivate good leaders, what it looks like to get them to be engaged and stay involved. They are your lifeline to other organizations and to the larger community. So we really want to encourage you guys to think about, lots of people are passionate about being a part of this, but you have to give them some guidelines as to what your expectations are to be in leadership roles so that they can help you fulfill this responsibility and move the organization forward. So key takeaways, it's a quality of leadership within a state horse council helps shape the culture and the credibility and the impact and the longevity of the organization. So building really solid leadership is important beyond words I can express. This takes us to chapter 11. Amanda, back to you.
So I kind of build on what Julie was just talking about here, streamlining those leadership voices within your state horse council. This doesn't mean limiting participation or dampening enthusiasm. It just means ensuring that the right voices are elevated at the right time. So one of the most important tools that we cover here is the committee system. Committees are going to be where issues are explored, expertise is applied, and trends are monitored. Committee leaders will play a crucial role in honing the individual voices on those committees. Some committee members may excel at public speaking. I am not one of those people, so I would not have been chosen as a committee member to public speak, but others excel at writing. That would have been my role. I'm a pretty decent writer. So I would probably be the one that would be tapped to write op-eds. Others may be really skilled at building relationships, or, a great project for those youth would be managing social media. Another highlight of what we're putting forth here in this chapter is the idea of creating a speakers bureau, which would be a dedicated space on your council's website that really showcases and highlights your members' expertise. It will also help promote you to the outside world. Finally, streamlining leadership means being intentional about where the council shows up. It can help identify which events, which coalitions, and which community groups align with your mission, and helps you focus your energy where it matters the most. So the key takeaway, I think, for this chapter is that we're streamlining the voices. It's not about control, it's about coordination. We're not trying to stifle anyone. We're just trying to make the best united front.
So I'll add to what Amanda said by telling you that my staff gets tired of me saying this, but we don't want to waste our capital on every issue. You can't be everything to everybody. It's about making a strategic plan, setting your priorities, agreeing on what your voice is going to be, and agreeing on where you want to lean in with your resources, and really prioritizing, because otherwise, if you lean in on everything, you kind of get watered down. So we really want to encourage you, read this chapter closely to figure out what your message is and where you want to put your energy. And back to chapter 12 now, Emily. One of the hot topics for us guys constantly is horses as livestock. This is a big, big thing for our industry. So Emily, talk about that.
Yeah, so this is something that comes up a lot, and we felt it was important to include in the toolkit because we know a lot of state horse councils get this pushback from some of their own members as well. And it can be hard to understand the importance of keeping horses legally as livestock in terms of regulation, especially when for a lot of us, they feel like a pet. And it's totally fine if you think of them like a pet. But in terms of the legal ramifications of how horses are viewed at both the federal and state level, keeping them as livestock is really important. So this chapter just touches through all the really important factors of why horses need to stay classified as livestock, not just at the federal level, but it also touches some of the local zoning level issues as well.
So read this one closely. I get questions all the time from people who are not part of the ag industry asking, why are horses considered livestock? And this is some good content here that you can use at the state level, local level. There's some really good stuff there. Now, on to chapter 13. I'm trying to stay on track here, guys, because we have a lot of chapters to get through. So chapter 13, volunteer recruitment and management, is a hot topic for state horse councils. We recognize that many of you operate with a volunteer base, and you rely on those volunteers to really help you accomplish the things you need to do. So Emily and I worked on this a little bit together, but I give her full credit for doing the majority of the research to get this chapter together. So Emily.
Yeah, so for this chapter, everybody in our team has spent a lot of time volunteering, both in and out of the horse industry. And so a lot of this comes from a lot of personal experience. And then we've also had professionals in volunteer management do webinars for us and share some really great information. So this chapter is a good kind of coalescing of all of that kind of real world experience and then the professionalized aspect of it. So the biggest thing about volunteers and managing volunteers is it kind of relates back to a lot of those touch points from starting youth council, but it's making sure that they feel valued, that they're actually contributing and not just signing off papers, and trying to help you feel confident in the jobs you give to volunteers and how to recruit and find volunteers. And that kind of has a lot of similarities to recruiting and growing your membership as well, but it all kind of starts to cycle together.
So I'm going to add one little point here before we go on to chapter 14, which is there are 2.2 million jobs in the horse industry today. We said in our last economic impact study we could use another 125,000 people to be employed, but we have almost 2 million volunteers in the industry. And the way to keep them going is to follow some of the guidelines we've had here about making them feel the love, making them feel appreciated, making them feel a part. And so, great chapter, Emily. Kudos to you for pulling all that together. So, chapter 14 kind of segues into building strategic partnerships. It's really difficult in today's society and as an association to not to move things without having good partners. So this chapter is all about why partnerships matter, how to identify possible partnerships, how to engage them, what kind of information you need to use with them. It is going to offer you, it's not there yet, but the subsequent page is going to be about potential partners you should explore. For example, you should look at the local chapter of the American Farm Bureau Federation. You should look at the National Grange. You should look at the FFA and 4-H and etc. Going to be a list there of different groups that you should explore whether or not there are some ways that you can work with them. May not be perfect, may only be a little isolated piece of what you do that overlaps with what they do, but still a good relationship is a positive thing. So that takes us to chapter 15, which is issues that we think state horse councils should make sure their members are well informed about. And Amanda, you're going to cover that.
Yes, I am. So one of the most critical areas that we think state horse councils can weigh in on is health and welfare, particularly disease prevention and outbreak responses. Councils can have an essential role in sharing timely, accurate information. And when crises occur, councils that have trained themselves in crisis communication can really help prevent misinformation and panic. Another priority that we cover is regulatory education. Councils are uniquely positioned to explain what regulatory rules mean, who they apply to, and how to comply, while also encouraging members to participate in the process by submitting comments. We also would like to see state horse councils equip members with practical knowledge about tax and trade issues. This is a really key area that we think state horse councils can really disseminate information that's key to the members in the different industries that make up their councils. Labor policy and workforce challenges are another critical area because so many of our facilities rely on seasonal labor. And knowing what you are allowed to and not allowed to do is critical. On the local level, issues like zoning and land conservation and public lands access are one of the most crucial things that have an immediate impact for state horse councils. One other area that we think state horse councils could really lean in on is crime. One of the things that we at the American Horse Council are exploring right now is unsanctioned racing, which can also be referred to as bush track racing. So these are fly-by-night kind of pop-up events, and we see them linked to illicit drug and human trafficking and really serious issues of health and welfare for the horses and people who participate. So we think that's a really critical area where state horse councils can weigh in on. Finally, education isn't only inward facing. Councils can also serve as a bridge to policymakers by facilitating barn tours, facility visits, and local engagement. That would be another really key area that state horse councils can educate members on.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. Okay, moving on, chapter 16. One of the most frequent questions that we get at the American Horse Council is, what do we do when we have a national emergency? Is there a wildfire? Is there a tornado? Is there a hurricane? So Emily has crafted chapter 16 on how to respond during a state emergency.
This chapter was really important to us to include because we think state horse councils have a really critical role in their local response. So when we talk about a state emergency, this could be a disease outbreak. This could be a natural disaster like a flood or a hurricane or a fire. It could be, something else going on that is localized. So we wanted to make sure that state horse councils knew, who are the key personnel in their area they should be connecting with, how to find those people, how to come up with a plan, and how to develop a communications plan, which is the most important part. I consulted with a few people on this, but I also brought in Ashley Harkins from the Horse Council and Kelsey Buckley. So Kelsey helps manage the Equine Welfare Data Collective. And Ashley, before we both came to AHC, we worked with the Animal Rescue League of Boston and did a lot of disaster response. Ashley, I believe, I don't want to speak for you. You responded to hurricane, didn't you?
Yeah, Hurricane Katrina. I was also on the state of Massachusetts animal response team. So one of the things that I would recommend as a horse council for your state is to check in and see if your state has a disaster animal response team. A lot of them will actually work under the Department of Agriculture. So having a good working relationship with both obviously the Department of Ag and your state's disaster animal response team is pretty critical. Find out in when a disaster happens, what your incident command structure is like, who's sort of like the top dog when a disaster hits, and make sure all of that stuff is hammered out in advance because you don't want to be doing that during a disaster.
Exactly.
Yeah, and for the disease outbreak part, for part of our NAD prep program that we're running right now, our biosecurity project, we are creating educational modules that will be available at the end of it. So those would be great to share with your coalition members as well.
So we're really excited, if Kelsey's underselling it, but the NAD Prep grant that we've got, we're going to have a learning management system. So you'll be able to go online take a class, a video class, answer the questions, and at the end, you'll get a little, what are we going to call it, Kelsey? A little certificate.
A certificate of completion, yes.
That you passed. So we're excited about that program, and it's going to be coming out in the next few months. So please reach out to Emily. She's at esterns@horsecouncil.org, or she'll put it in the chat if you've got questions about any of this emergency response stuff, because this has become a really hot topic. I'm sorry to say climate change has really changed our lives a lot here lately. I was on the news last night and saw a tornado that was coming through. Where was it? In Indiana, somewhere over there. It was a huge tornado. So, and we've seen a couple of big barn fires and some barn collapses with the recent snow. So lots and lots of different ways that we're being affected by that. Okay, Emily, on to chapter 17.
And this goes hand in hand. This chapter goes hand in hand with the disaster response chapter a little bit. So, supporting good welfare, this approach is from kind of multiple different aspects, but the question is, how can a state horse council support good welfare in their area? And the whole point of this chapter is not teaching you how to be the welfare police. We're not saying you're supposed to be going to horse shows and looking for issues or knocking on people's barn doors to make sure their horses aren't too skinny. But this is about how to support your community, how to find resources for your members or your community members in need, and basically how to act as the touch point to guide owners in need to finding help and be a coordinator. So a big aspect of supporting good welfare is making sure you're connecting with your local community. And part of that is understanding where resources are and how to direct people. So this chapter really kind of does a bit of a deep dive into that.
Awesome. Okay, so I said there are 18 chapters. I think we have gotten 17, Emily, in the book so far. Maybe there's one more to go. But if you have something that you think a state horse council really needs, then please reach out to us. And there's chapter 18. Sorry, I missed it. Chapter 18 is there. The most important question that we get, or one of the most important questions we get, is, so what does being a state horse council get you if you are part of the American Horse Council? So being part of the Coalition of State Horse Councils and being part of the American Horse Council. And so there's a whole chapter here on the benefits for state horse councils, things that we have you can pass on to your members, things your state horse council can do. And Ashley and I were the collaborators on this one because we have what we call a members perk program. If you go to the grocery store and you swipe your little card, you get these points and you get these things. So we have a whole program just like that that tells you if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to get some points. It's going to get you some free things. You're going to get some publications for free. You're going to get some stuff like that. And we also have a way to offer you some other avenues of opportunity. For example, not to put Kelsey on the spot, but we have an intern this semester who's doing a whole research project on grants that are available and other things that are out there. Amanda just found a couple of new pieces of legislation that are going to offer some funding to help with facilities that are looking at water management and irrigation. How do you apply for those? How does that work? So lots and lots of things that you could obtain through us, or we can offer you to help you and your members get more money, get more benefits, get more grants, or whatever it might look like. So that's kind of a little bit of where we are. Emily, did I miss something since you're scrolling? Yep, we've done good on time. So I'm going to pause there, and Justine, jump back on and talk a little bit about sort of where to from here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, as I mentioned before, and now I'm sure you can visibly see the wealth of information that's in this. And at the end, chapter 18, what are the benefits for a state horse council being involved with the American Horse Council? Well, the obvious one to me is just the ability to come together, share resources, learn from one another, and support one another. And, I think if you go through this resource toolkit, you're going to get new ideas that will do nothing but strengthen you. And coming back to the coalition, having that conversation, who here is already doing that? You know, if you have a stumbling block, then you can reach out to somebody that's already putting some of those into practice and learn from them. I have leaned into a lot of institutional knowledge from, you know, State Horse Council leaders who have been in their positions a lot longer than me. Ann Swinker's name comes to mind, and just the value of networking within one another, and also during the National Issues Forum in DC. My goodness, what a growing experience that is. That will be our second quarterly meeting for the year. And grant writing is definitely something, you know, maybe we can also try to come up with some examples of grants or resources of where to find those grants and have kind of that knowledge base ready. The other thing that came to mind, and I'm trying not to get on a rabbit trail, but there's just so much good information that just my mind just keeps going. But the disaster animal response evaluation, to be able to put together that flow chart of who your points of contact are, and being able to identify the gaps within your state where you can maybe fill that gap or figure out a way to fill that gap by networking with your state emergency response team. I think, you know, in 21, maybe we had talked about it as a coalition to have just sort of an ongoing webinar training session. And maybe this is something that will come out of, Kelsey, the programs that you're developing, is just the steps. You know, step one, you need to go out and find, you know, XYZ who does this in your state and what is their jurisdiction, and then putting together that calling tree, so to speak, but walking state horse councils through how to develop that. And maybe that's part of that webinar. So anyway, just in summary, all of this information is so very valuable, and the energy that we can get from one another and just the wealth of knowledge is just it's priceless. So I would encourage everybody to come to DC in June for our second quarterly meeting and all the other incredible updates that you get and the networking opportunities there. So thank you.
Thanks, Justine. Okay, so we got 5 minutes left, and so what I want to do, number one, is to say thank you to my team, because they really dove in and did some hard work to pull all this together. So really excited about this toolkit. We hope you guys will really take advantage of it. It will be available to you in a digital format, and you're welcome to use it. We have a number of other opportunities that we're still exploring. Somebody asked in the chat about insurance options, and we've been looking at that. We've got a number of different things like that we're also considering. But post this meeting, again, if you see a topic that you need help with that you don't see in the toolkit right now, reach out to us and let us do a little due diligence and see if we can find some content to share with you. This, we believe, is a very dynamic, kind of fluid document. We're going to get it together, and early March we will have sort of a final for you in the current format. But our desire is to keep this current. So maybe once a year we'll come back and we'll revisit a few pieces and see if something has changed or there's new resources to look at out there. Lots and lots of different ways to kind of take this product and kind of do something with it. So I'll turn to Amanda or Emily or Ashley or Kelsey to say, woohoo, good job, guys. Anything you want to add to what I said?
I'm happy to add that our goal is to keep a lot of the information evergreen. So if there's more specific information you want, feel free to email us, but we're going to try really hard not to put like specific contacts or a lot of specific websites in it, because we want this to still be applicable 10, 15 years from now. Because the information, all this stuff about leadership and communication should be the same, whether you're starting this now, 20 years ago, or 20 years from now.
Yep. And there was a question, and I'm going to let Amanda address this. There was a question in the chat about where we are on some legislative and regulatory issues. We produce a monthly report that says, here's all the legislative things we're tracking. Here's all the regulatory things we're monitoring. Here's what our position is. Here's what's going on with it. So if you or your state horse council have an interest in getting that monthly report, just reach out to us and we're happy to share that with you. We call it our little one-page leave behind. It's not going to be this long, laborious report that takes forever to read, although we do one of those too. It's going to give you sort of our top 10 legislative and regulatory issues. One of those is, for example, where we are with the Farm Bill. Then we're going to talk about where we are with appropriations. We're going to talk about where we are with bush track racing. We're going to talk about visas. We're going to talk about tariffs. And even today, woo-wee, the Supreme Court made a whole different rule about the tariffs. So lots of evolving things that are out there. And then Emily gets into the regulatory stuff like pyrethins and hemp products and all those kinds of issues that are out there. So if you are interested in that kind of information, we can give you that as a separate one-pager front and back. It's a one easy peasy thing to tell you sort of where we are with those kinds of things. Doesn't mean we aren't monitoring some really interesting other things. It's just that those things don't have a lot of legs right now. They're not really moving. They're sort of out there and circulating and getting additional sponsors. Maybe they haven't been sent to committee, that kind of thing. So we kind of do it like that. Amanda, you want to jump on?
I was scrolling for that comment to find, and I don't see it, but I'll put my email address in the chat, and whoever had that comment, or really anybody else, reach out to me and I'll email you that resource.
Okay. Kelsey, Ashley, anything you want to jump on? If you have not checked out the United Horse Coalition's resource database, please go do so. It's a great tool. If you have owners in your state who are struggling, whether it's for financial reasons or going through medical challenges or a divorce or whatever that might look at, because you can find hay banks and feed coupons and all kinds of assistance. And we just announced this week, we're so excited, in addition to working with AAEP on Vet Direct, which provides financial assistance to help with that, you can also check out our new program, which is Farrier Direct, which is $300 per horse to help with farrier needs for people who find themselves in difficult circumstances. I think the phrase Emily likes to use is no hoof, no horse. And so the hoof is the important part. And so if people find themselves unable to afford farrier care, Farrier Direct's there to help them figure that out. So that's all about. Thanks, Emily. That's all about what the resource database is all about there for. So anybody else in our last minute or two with a question that you would like to ask before we drop off for today? Again, this is being recorded so you can listen to the replay if you missed anything.
I have a quick question, if I may, Julie. I don't know if you're getting the echo that I am.
I am getting a little echo, but it's okay.
Okay. We are in the process through the Empire State Coalition of Ag organizations and trying to get a line item in the New York State budget. And we've done visitors with legislators in Albany. And I'm at a point in the budget process of trying to contact our members to help support us on this request. But I don't know if this is okay as a 501c3.
I think that's a question you should take offline with Amanda, and she can tell you, given where you are as a C3, what you can and you can't do, but she can give you some advice. There's lots of things as a C3 you can do, but there are some restrictions on some things that are a little over the line. So reach out to her. She's got her email address in the chat, and you and she can talk about that, Pauline.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anybody else? So somebody asked just recently, we're close to getting this buttoned up, but give us a few more days and maybe another week or two, Emily, actually, to kind of get it all beautified, as we like to say. And then it'll be available. And what you need to do, if you are a current Coalition of State Horse Council member, just email us at info@horsecouncil.org and we will send you a digital copy. If you are not a member of the coalition, we encourage you to become a member. And you can also go to the website in our publications tab, and you can purchase a copy of the toolkit for $50 when we get it all finalized and up on the website. So is that a good assessment, Ashley? Am I saying okay?
Sounds good to me.
She's my back person, my back office person, so I gotta make sure. Okay, guys, so it is 4:02. I don't want to keep you past our allotted time. Justine, close us out since you're the chair of the coalition. Anything you want to close with?
I just want to thank you for your time and for everybody attending and for the American Horse Council's presentation and toolkit resource. And I hope to see you all in June.
Thanks, guys. Have a good afternoon and happy weekend. Hope it is warm and dry where you are. I will say in DC, it's cold, it's wet. We still have snow on the ground. And many of my staff are in the New England area, and they tell me more snow is coming. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we're not all shoveling all weekend long. So anyway, have a good one. Thank you.